I'm Vin.
I'm sorry.
And this is Unbesiegt from the band Equilibrium.
This is for the Epic Underground, one of our alliances.
Yeah. There are multiple ways to get your song reviewed, dear listener. My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon, where you can then pull your points together. And then once you've done that, then you're able to influence what songs that we listen to. And that's what's happened here. For timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sori. And without further ado, this is Unconquered. Unconquered is a translation of the Unbesiegt thingamajiggy. So,
all right, well.
So some black metal goodness. Let's go!
Here we go. Uh-oh.
It's not black metal?
No, not surprising. I like it.
Sounds like an island thing.
Yeah, it's fun.
Die, definitely.
Yup.
That one it's upbeat. It has such a good feel to it. I was surprised by the vocal style because everything was so like, it was like uplifting, and then the vocal style came in, but I thought that it made such an interesting contrast. And I know we've listened to a song before that was kind of happy and like those kind of vocals at the same time, but not this much. Like this one was like happy and uplifting, and it kind of made you feel like it was like celebratory, and there was like, I don't know, a party on the beach.
I was certain that this was going to be a black metal type song.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting too.
Maybe it's because it had to be translated. I was like, oh, this is from black metal.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's what was making me think that too. Lyrically, I loved what it was talking about, especially when he kept saying bleeding yet unbowed.
We'll put the lyrics in the description. Is that what you're saying? Put the lyrics.
Yeah, I can put the lyrics in the description.
We'll copy and paste the lyrics in the description. You can follow along, inshallah. But lyrically, it's really, really good.
Yeah. So when he says bleeding yet unbowed, that part was like super, super important. And like, when others kneel down, dust scorn they earn, I stand, be my witness, bleeding yet unbowed. Like, it was so powerful. And it was like, it had like that, like a real overcomer sort of feel to it, which I really, really liked. But at the same time, it kind of like, it reminded me of different situations where I've talked to women who have been like bad situations where they find themselves like kind of feeling like powerless, mostly rape situations. And like the one instance that I'm thinking of, the woman was like, specifically said something to the guy because he had a weapon and there was no getting out of the situation and there was nobody around. And she said something to him to kind of like fight back in a way. And so it reminded me of that because there's been so many women that have been in situations where they're like forced, because he says bleeding yet unbowed. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're stuck in a situation where somebody exercises such power over you and you can't stop it because of the way that the situation is, which is extremely frustrating. But at the same time, like, even though you're in that situation, you can remain unbowed, like, internally. And so that was kind of shout out to all the women and the men that have been, I sometimes leave the men out of those situations because it's like hard to, process that a woman could be more powerful or use her power over men. But I was actually just talking to a girl today on Facebook because she was like, basically like, all these girls that keep slapping guys around, like, they need to stop. And I'm like, no, it's true. Especially like when it's a woman that knows that the guy is not going to hit back. Like, he has that code about him, and then she friggin' takes advantage of that. That makes me super, super angry.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I was in that conversation with you and your mom, and you guys were...
That's because I disagree with you.
What is wrong with you guys?
Because he was saying that it's not... Because we were saying if a girl is slapping the hell out of a guy, and he, like, puts his hands up to block it, he says a guy shouldn't even do that. And my mother and I completely disagree with that. He's like, well, she could hurt her hand, slap, like when she's coming in for the hit. I'm like, so? Like, she's the one wailing her body at you. He doesn't agree. He's like, no, he would never do something in some situation like that. Like, well, luckily, I'm not the type of person that's going to try to hit you, so. But that's so frustrating. And I don't think that is... Like, I do not agree with a guy hitting a woman in any circumstance, but I have absolutely no problem with him putting his hands up to block her blows. Like, matter of fact, I think you should. Carry on, good sir.
Ridiculous.
She might hurt her hand.
I do think
sin has its own punishment.
Yeah, and I think she's suffered enough, don't you? I didn't need to do any of that shit.
I mean, say what you want, but I think people just put their hands up to protect their own face.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But I do think, like, adversity, like when he talks about, like, he said something about, there it is, greatly contested the fortress of mine, the circles of my might. Like, like, I don't... I'm in the middle of some conflict or whatever, but like, conflict is unavoidable. Like in the world, no, like honestly, like
It is,
in
but
the
for
world-
some people, it's more unavoidable.
well, it depends. You know what I mean? Like,
No, some people are always putting their opinions out there, and those opinions,
well,
people don't like those opinions.
well, that's the thing is that you have to choose what conflicts you're going to engage in and what conflicts are worth it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's objectively true that LeBron James is a better basketball player than Michael Jordan, but it's not something to lose a friendship over.
Uh-huh.
But there is things that are worth losing friendships over.
Oh, I agree.
So-
Absolutely agree.
You know, but people are so conditioned. Everybody's so conditioned for comfort that they do everything they possibly can to avoid conflict. And there's some conflicts that you're supposed to engage in. And you know, and you there are, you know, and it's really interesting because in the metal community there's this whole like non-conformist and fuck the system and I'm gonna beat my own path and I'm gonna say what I want. If you don't like it, fuck you. I got my leather jacket on. But then when you violate certain orthodoxies in metal subculture, then it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think like people are so conditioned for comfort and ease and having everybody like them that, you know. But I don't think that is that I don't think that could be in play for a Christian. This is one of the reasons why. This is one of the
What
reasons.
do you mean? What?
This is one of the reasons why anytime like I get some like hardcore Christian who says, "Oh my God, you guys are compromising devil music, blah blah blah," like I know for a fact that that's not the case. I know for a fact that we've engaged in way more confrontational issues.
Oh, yeah.
In our community than they ever would.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
I think if you're doing Christianity right, then you're supposed to be in conflict with people. Are supposed to love and hate you simultaneously.
Yeah. It's
So-
not all conflict, my God.
No, but there are certain
There
things.
are things you have to. Yeah.
There are certain
absolutely.
things where like you got to have, and then you have to be able. But see, like there are different forms of psychological warfare. So like one form of psychological warfare is, rah, we're gonna do this, and if you don't listen to us, we're gonna kill you, and yada 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 yada, right? Like that's one, right? The other form of psychological warfare is, man, don't you just want to have a comfortable life? So, for example, like when you're in Iraq, right, and you had a psychops team, they would drop these leaflets of these dead jihadists,
Yeah.
right? So you go and pick up this thing as a, you know, like let's say you're 32, you got 3 kids or whatever, and you open the leaflet and page 1 is a dead jihadist. And you look over page 2 and it's a family sitting down, you know, having falafel or whatever it is, and then the next line is, wouldn't you rather be B than A? If one of these idiots comes to your door and tries to give you an AK-47, reject him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like those are that was something where I was like, oh, okay, like those are like the extremes, right? Like on the one hand you have the bad cop that's going raw and trying to get you to do something.
Yeah.
Then the other hand you have the good cop that's like offering you comfort and all this if you would just abandon the battlefield. When the fact of the matter is we invaded their country.
Right.
Like, say what you want about the justification. I think all of us are pretty much, you know, aligned now that we should not have gone into Iraq. But the fact of the matter is, we invaded their country and we left it an absolute mess, made it a vacuum. I don't care, Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah.
And these people had the audacity to fight the people that were invading their country, and so then we showed up with this psychological warfare to try to tell them like, hey, don't fight back. We're going to. You know what I mean? So like there's different ways that people try to break you and try to corrupt your mind.
Bullies.
Well, I think that there are certain aspects of our culture that have done a very good job of pointing out the bad cop side of it. But a lot of people don't know the good cop side of it.
True. Yeah.
And both of them are trying to accomplish a goal, which is to get you to conform to a certain type of you know, perspective or whatever, or to allow for certain things. And so like if you don't understand that a lot of it is in the mind, then you're gonna miss out on so many things. If you go to look at a guy like Trump, for example, people go, oh my God, look at him, blah 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 blah. Like it's easy to figure out what he's doing as far as like how he is and all the rest of it. But when you look at the other side of it, you know, the other people who are a lot more sophisticated in the way that they engage in psychological warfare, most people can't catch it. Most people don't see it. And then they end up doing the same things that Trump is trying to get you to do.
Yeah.
But they end up doing the same things.
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying?
you see what you're saying.
So like
it's a very annoying thing to hear.
but like, so like when you talk about like, and you know, we had to really develop this, you know, psychologically and theologically, because where we were in the downtown area, I always say 90% of the girls we talked to had been sexually assaulted, but it was pretty sure it was all of them that I don't think I've ever talked to a girl down there that didn't have some sort of sexual assault. And like you had to kind of rebuild you had to kind of rebuild their mind, because there was nothing you could do to undo what was done to them physically, right? So like that's over and gone, and unless we have a DeLorean, there is no way to correct what had been done to them physically. But psychologically, like there are ways of building people up and getting people to the point where, you know, like the person you were talking about, where they were in an impossible situation, the guy's got a weapon, you know,
in the middle of nowhere.
She was in the middle, literally in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so physically there was
There's no one to holler for help for, nothing.
It's just an impossible situation, right? And then, you know, then she said that, you know, whatever to the guy, because like she's understanding that there's a psychological part, and she was saying, I'm not going to give you my mind, you know. And so this happens a lot with people who are in situations where they don't have power in the physical world. So this was World War II, these guys, I was watching this documentary of these guys, and they got caught by the Japanese, and then the Japanese would, you know, parade them in front of the cameras or whatever and make them repeat all these statements like America's terrible, blah blah blah. And so as they were reading, they would hold the paper like this, right? And so you know, you know what I'm saying. But again, they were in an impossible situation physically. You're outnumbered. The Japanese, they torture you. They determine when you eat, sleep. Nothing you do. You're out. That's it. You're done. But that was them meant, and that was a psychological game that they were playing with themselves, so that they could still say that I haven't surrendered my mind to you, even though I'm a POW. And of course, you had silly people in America calling them traitors and all that for reading the thing, and you know, sitting from the comforts of their couch calling these guys traitors and all that. It was ridiculous stuff. But eventually, the Japanese found out what they were doing. You know what I'm saying? And it didn't go well for them.
I bet it didn't.
But they were willing to deal with that consequence, because they were not going to surrender their minds to these people. And I think that is such a powerful concept, that you don't surrender your mind to people, and that there's more. But again, and this is one of the conveniences of a Christian worldview, right? Is because we say there's more to us than just our physical body.
Yep.
Like, we don't deny the importance of the physical body. Obviously, we believe in a physical bodily resurrection that will go on for all eternity. But we are more than just our physical bodies. So that, you know, when you have people being marched to an arena to be made sport of and then be devoured by lions, they're singing hymns. Or when Paul is arrested and shackled, he's, you know, in very inhumane conditions, he's singing. Is because like there are aspects of your being that transcend the physical. Obviously, you don't need to be a Christian to believe that. I think even I was listening to.
You see that example with Jesus when he was dying, and he said, "Yes, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing."
Right.
Like that understanding that.
Yeah, that's another level.
That is another level, but that's where we get it from. You know what I mean? Like this idea that there's something beyond. What's going on in just that moment.
I was listening to one of these guys, one of these political commentary guys, who died at like 37. This is Michael something. He was on the Sam Sater show. Sam Sater's like a far left guy. I generally don't like him, but it was a pretty crazy moment of humanity when he was talking about his friend who had like literally just died. And he was like, and it was tough because Sater's usually a very dry, sarcastic guy, like across the board. Like even when he's mad, like, you know, he goes from like a 3 to a 3.2. You know what I mean?
Gosh,
like,
okay.
But he's talking about, and his friend just died suddenly out of nowhere. The guy is 37 years old. I'm pretty sure Sater's older than him. And so he had to take a break. You know what I'm saying, when he was talking about, because like he died on a Monday, they shot the show on Tuesday, and I had a hell of a lot of respect for him for doing that, because it was very, very difficult. And so anyway, I started looking into him because people started talking about his spirituality and all that, and that whole crew, all those guys are atheists generally. So I started looking, and the guy started talking about this Michael guy, right? I wish I knew his last name. But he started talking about being in a spiritual battle and yada yada yada. And the guy's an atheist, as far as I knew. So my point is, you don't have to be a Christian to understand that there's something transcendent about us, and you can scientificalize it. That's fine. Like you know what I mean. And I believe there's a scientific explanation for everything, because I don't believe in this dichotomy between the natural and the supernatural.
Yeah.
I've come to that conclusion. So everybody understands that there's something else about us that's different and that transcends the physical. And if you can tap into that, then it's going to go a really, really long way for you. So never will they break me, nor corrupt my mind. Never will I bow myself, nor show them humility. Never will they get me, nor grind my stronghold. See, I am, be my witness. It's kind of very flowery language and very strange to hear a person say that about themselves. However, there is a sense in which that is admirable.
Yeah.
But there, I could do that, but I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I mean, there are certain contexts in which people will celebrate you for having that mindset, and the other contexts but every context is like that. Every subculture has rules that they want you to follow and orthodoxies that they don't want you to break, and all the rest of it. And you kind of have to decide for yourself, because you have to define who they is. Who is they? Yeah. Right? So if you perceive they as always being your enemies, I think you're at a disadvantage in a bunch of ways. Right? Because if one, you're at a disadvantage because your friends want you to conform to a certain way. Right? This whole thing where people are like, hey, you accept me, I accept you for who you are, blah, blah, blah. Most people are not like that.
I feel like everybody's kind of walking around wanting other people to conform to them.
Right.
To what they have, and what thought processes they have, and what it is that they want in a relationship, or what they want in a...
Everybody's like that. Some are just more honest about it than others. Right? So,
yeah.
But
and there's varying degrees.
So if you say only my enemies think that way, then you're at a disadvantage, because your friends want you to think that way either. And the second thing is, if you consider everybody who wants you to conform your enemy, then you're not, because Orion wants us to conform to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? That is a tough concept to negotiate.
That's who he's talking about.
Yeah, that's a tough concept to negotiate as a human being. Is that to know that this person or these people want you to conform to a certain thing, they want you to believe a certain thing, they want you to, and then understanding that you have your own set of convictions and all the rest of it. Parents do it with their kids. As a matter of fact, we expect parents to do that with their kids, right?
Yeah.
Kids, acting all crazy in the store. You don't say, well, that's that kid's, that's his path and that's his mindset, so let's go ahead and let him do whatever he wants to do. No, you're looking at the parent like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Do something.
Right, because you're saying to the parent, this is a bad activity. It's outside of the social norm, and it's causing me some distress, and I'm angry at you for not getting your kid in line to be in conformity with what all the rest of us nice people at the store are doing. So even getting people to conform is not always bad. But of course that leads to different conversations like, well, who gets to determine what we all should conform to, and yada 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 yada.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the whole non-conformity, I'm gonna stand on my own 2 feet thing is celebrated in the metal community. But it's also not celebrated if it goes contrary to certain subcultures as orthodoxy. But that is everybody. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why you just have to recognize what's going on. You have to recognize what's going on, and then you have to weigh for yourself, Because I think being a
Put your
nonconformist,
flag in the ground at certain points, not arguing every single point.
I think being a nonconformist for the sake of being not a nonconformist is stupid. Because that means you're being controlled. You're still being controlled, right? Because you're allowing people to control you by the fact that they're doing something.
Yeah.
So you now have to do the opposite.
Right.
But so I just think like in any given situation, you have to say, okay, well, is this something I should adopt and conform to? Because maybe those people are right, or maybe they're wrong and you're right, or maybe both of you are wrong and there's a third way, or whatever. But
I'm never wrong.
actually, at the social level, you're pretty good at well, there's that one. Was it? We were on, was it the atheist page or something like that? Abortion came up and you blitzed the guy for I forgot what it was. You did so. I was like, I'm troll.
What do you mean? Was that the one where we were on video?
Yeah, it was some dude who was saying something reckless on that. But yeah, you're actually pretty good at the social stuff, but you grew up in a conformist environment. I grew up in complete conflict from start to finish. So it's like a warm bath for me. Very comfortable in. But I was very comfortable with the song.
We have one of our kids is like that too. Just conflict everywhere. He always wants to argue it.
And so you right, and so you drop the wisdom and say that's not something to fight about, right? Like that's not something.
That's what I've been talking to him about. I'm like, listen, I can't argue with you every day, all day long. There's too many.
What's funny is he doesn't argue with me.
No, he argues with all the women around him.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
He argues with.
He argues with Dorian. He argues with all.
Yeah.
I think he knows that he and I are exactly the same. So, in that regard, so you just gotta channel it. What do you give the song?
Anyway, this is a 10 for me. Loved it. Loved it.
9.7. I wish it was a little bit longer, and I wish there was a video for it.
Oh, I agree. Maybe there was. Maybe they didn't send it
Trump and all
because they
that.
didn't want it to get blocked.
Shout out to Epic Underground. This is probably the pick of the month so far.
Really enjoyed it. Thanks a
The month
lot.
is coming to a close. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone.